Someone's eyes are full of tears right now, and the strangest part is that you may not even know who they are. Before you dismiss that thought, stay with me. Because what you are about to hear is not a story about coincidence. It is a story about a connection that refused to die, a message that refused to disappear, and a heart that has reached the point where silence is no longer possible. There is someone who has carried your name in their thoughts for far longer than they ever admitted. They tried to move on. They tried to stay busy. They tried to convince themselves that what they felt would eventually fade. But yesterday something happened. Something small. Something ordinary. And yet it changed everything. Maybe it was a song. Maybe it was a place. Maybe it was a memory they thought they had buried forever. Whatever it was, it opened a door they could no longer keep closed. And suddenly every emotion they had been hiding came rushing back. That is why their eyes filled with tears. Not because they are weak. Not because they are broken. But because they have reached the point where pretending no longer works. What makes this even more shocking is that they never expected to miss you this much. In fact, there was a time when they believed they were completely in control. They thought they could walk away. They thought they could ignore the connection. They thought they could silence the feelings. But life has a way of revealing truths when people least expect it. And now they are facing a truth they cannot escape. They miss you. More than they ever imagined. There is a reason you found this message today. Because the energy surrounding this situation is reaching a turning point. For a long time, there were things left unsaid. Words trapped behind pride. Feelings hidden behind fear. Questions that never received answers. And every day those unanswered questions grew heavier. Imagine carrying a letter in your pocket for years but never finding the courage to deliver it. Imagine replaying a conversation in your mind thousands of times. Imagine wondering what would have happened if just one decision had been different. That is exactly where this person is right now. Their heart is exhausted. Their mind is exhausted. And yet they still cannot stop thinking about you. But here is where the story becomes even more surprising. The tears are not only about sadness. They are also about realization. Because for the first time, they understand something that once seemed impossible. You were never just another person in their life. You became part of their story. Part of their dreams. Part of their future plans. And losing that connection created an emptiness they never expected. They spent months pretending everything was fine. Smiling when people asked questions. Acting strong when they felt weak. Telling themselves they were over it. Yet every night the truth returned. Every memory returned. Every emotion returned. And now the walls they built are beginning to crack. Have you ever seen a dam hold back water for years? Everything looks stable from the outside. But deep inside, pressure keeps building. Eventually one small crack changes everything. That crack appeared yesterday. And the emotions came flooding out. The tears were real. The regret was real. The longing was real. Because there is something they wish they could tell you. Something they have rehearsed 1,000 times. They wish they could say, I never stopped caring. Think about that. Not yesterday. Not last week. Not recently. They never stopped. Even during the silence. Even during the distance. Even during the moments when it seemed like they had moved on. Part of their heart remained connected to you. Now let me tell you something even deeper. The reason this connection feels so powerful is because it was never built on perfect circumstances. It survived misunderstandings. It survived time. It survived separation. And connections that survive those things often leave permanent marks on people. That is why your presence still echoes inside their mind. That is why your memory still appears when they least expect it. That is why tears appeared in their eyes when nobody was watching. Because some emotions can be delayed. But they cannot be erased. And right now this person is standing at a crossroads. One path leads back into silence. The other path leads toward honesty. For the first time, they are seriously considering honesty. That possibility scares them. Because honesty requires vulnerability. Honesty means admitting what they feel. Honesty means risking rejection. Honesty means letting someone see the truth they have hidden for so long. But despite the fear, something inside them is pushing forward. A voice keeps telling them that time is running out. That opportunities do not wait forever. That some conversations need to happen before it is too late. And that voice grows louder every day. The shocking revelation is that they are no longer fighting that voice. They are starting to listen. Right now they are remembering moments that seemed insignificant at the time. A laugh. A glance. A conversation. A promise. Tiny moments that became priceless memories. Funny how that works. People rarely know which moments will matter most until years later. And now those moments are playing in their mind like scenes from a movie. Over and over again. Each memory bringing another wave of emotion. Each memory reminding them of what they lost. Each memory strengthening their desire to reconnect. But there is one memory that affects them more than all the others. A moment when they felt understood. Completely understood. In a world where people often feel unseen, that feeling is rare. And once someone experiences it, they never forget. That memory is one of the reasons the tears appeared. Because deep down they fear they may never experience that feeling again. Now listen carefully. Because this next part matters. The tears are not a sign of defeat. They are a sign that truth is finally rising to the surface. People cry for many reasons. Some cry because they are hurt. Some cry because they are overwhelmed. And some cry because their heart has finally stopped hiding. This feels like the third kind. A heart that can no longer pretend. A heart that has carried too much for too long. A heart that wants relief. And relief often begins with honesty. That is why the energy around this situation feels different now. Something is shifting. Something is moving. Something that has been frozen for a long time is beginning to thaw. The distance may still exist. The silence may still exist. But the emotional walls are weakening. And when walls weaken, communication becomes possible. That possibility is what makes this moment so powerful. Because somewhere, someone is wondering if they should reach out. Someone is staring at their phone. Someone is rereading old messages. Someone is imagining what they would say if they had one chance to speak from the heart. And yes, their eyes are full of tears. Not because they have given up, but because they finally understand what they stand to lose if they remain silent. The truth has become impossible to ignore. The feelings have become impossible to deny. The connection has become impossible to forget. And tonight, while the world continues moving as if nothing has changed, a private battle continues inside their heart. A battle between fear and courage. A battle between silence and truth. A battle between holding on and finally reaching out. The outcome of that battle could change everything. Because sometimes a single message changes a year. Sometimes a single conversation changes a future. Sometimes a single moment of honesty changes an entire life. And somewhere, at this very moment, someone whose eyes are filled with tears is thinking about you. Wondering. Remembering. Hoping. Waiting. Waiting for clarity. Waiting for courage. Waiting for the right moment. But most of all, waiting for a chance that they fear may never come again. And that is why the tears appeared. Not because the story is over, but because deep inside, they desperately hope it is not. The story does not end with those tears. In fact, the tears were only the beginning. Because after the emotions settled, after the memories stopped rushing through their mind for a moment, something happened that completely changed the way they looked at this connection. They realized they had been asking themselves the wrong question. For months, maybe even years, they kept asking, "Why can't I forget? Why does this person still cross my mind? Why does my heart react every time I hear their name?" But yesterday, a different question appeared. A question so powerful that it shook them to their core. What if I was never meant to forget? The moment that thought entered their mind, everything changed. Because suddenly the connection stopped feeling like a burden. It stopped feeling like unfinished business. It stopped feeling like a mistake. Instead, it felt like something important. Something meaningful. Something that had survived every attempt to erase it. And that realization brought another wave of emotion. Not sadness this time. Fear. Because when people realize their feelings are real, they are forced to make a decision. Continue hiding. Or finally face the truth. And right now this person is standing directly between those two choices. The shocking part? They are becoming tired of hiding. For a very long time, they convinced themselves that silence was the safest option. Silence protected them from rejection. Silence protected them from disappointment. Silence protected them from vulnerability. But silence came with a price. Every day they remained silent, another piece of their heart grew heavier. Every day they remained silent, another question remained unanswered. Every day they remained silent, another opportunity slipped away. And eventually they reached a point where the pain of silence became greater than the fear of speaking. That point arrived yesterday. That is why they cried. Because they suddenly understood how much time had passed. Think about that. Time is the one thing nobody can get back. Not money. Not status. Not success. Time. And as they looked back, they realized something that left them stunned. They had spent so much time protecting themselves that they never gave themselves a chance to be happy. That realization hurt deeply. Because now they are wondering what might have happened if they had been brave sooner. What conversations never happened because of fear? What memories were never created because of hesitation? What possibilities disappeared because nobody took the first step? These questions keep echoing in their mind. And every answer leads back to the same person. You. There is something they have never told anyone. Not friends. Not family. Not even themselves completely. They compare people to you. Not intentionally. It just happens. Every new connection. Every new conversation. Every new beginning. Somehow their mind searches for the same feeling they once experienced. And every time they search, they discover something surprising. Nobody quite feels the same. Nobody creates the same emotional impact. Nobody leaves the same imprint. That realization frightened them at first. Because it forced them to admit how significant this connection really was. But now they are starting to accept it. And acceptance is changing everything. The energy surrounding them feels different. More honest. More vulnerable. More real. No more pretending. No more running. No more convincing themselves that they don't care. Because they do care. More than they ever admitted. And the truth is becoming impossible to hide. Last night was especially difficult. The world was quiet. The distractions were gone. The noise disappeared. And when people are alone with their thoughts, the truth often becomes louder. That is exactly what happened. They sat there remembering things they thought they had forgotten. The way a conversation flowed effortlessly. The way laughter came naturally. The way certain moments felt safe. The way certain memories still feel alive. And suddenly they found themselves asking a question they never expected. What if this connection still has a future? The moment that thought appeared, their hearts started racing. Because hope can be terrifying. Hope asks people to believe again. Hope asks people to risk disappointment. Hope asks people to open doors they once closed. And yet hope continues to appear. Again and again. No matter how hard they try to ignore it. Hope keeps returning. The most surprising revelation is that they are beginning to listen. For the first time in a long time, they are imagining possibilities instead of endings. They are imagining conversations instead of silence. They are imagining honesty instead of hiding. And those thoughts are becoming stronger every day. But there is another reason tears appeared in their eyes. A reason they have not admitted to anyone. Regret. Not the kind of regret that disappears after a few days. The kind that lingers. The kind that follows people into quiet moments. The kind that whispers. You should have said something. You should have tried harder. You should have been honest. Those whispers have become impossible to ignore. And every day they grow louder. That is why the emotional pressure continues building. Because deep down they know something important. Opportunities are precious. And some opportunities do not wait forever. For the first time, they are starting to understand the true cost of waiting. The true cost of pride. The true cost of fear. The true cost of silence. And understanding that cost has changed their perspective completely. Now they are asking themselves a different question. What if I still have a chance? That question keeps returning. Morning. Afternoon. Night. It refuses to leave. Because their heart has not given up. Despite everything that happened. Despite every obstacle. Despite every reason to walk away. A part of them still believes. A part of them still hopes. A part of them still waits. That waiting is what makes this situation so emotional. Because waiting creates uncertainty. And uncertainty creates anxiety. They do not know what the future holds. They do not know how things would unfold. They do not know what the outcome would be. But they know one thing with absolute certainty. Their feelings are real. And that truth changes everything. The tears were proof. The memories were proof. The sleepless nights were proof. The constant thoughts were proof. The longing was proof. No matter how hard they tried to deny it, the evidence kept appearing. And now they are reaching a point where denial is no longer possible. Something inside them is waking up. Something brave. Something honest. Something determined. That part of them is beginning to take control. Slowly. Quietly. But unmistakably. And when that happens, people start making decisions they once thought were impossible. They start saying things they were afraid to say. They start taking steps they were afraid to take. They start choosing truth over comfort. That transformation is happening right now. Maybe they have not acted yet. Maybe they have not spoken yet. Maybe they have not reached out yet. But the internal shift has already begun. And internal shifts always come before external actions. That is why this moment feels so significant. Because the tears were never the destination. They were the signal. A signal that the heart could no longer stay silent. A signal that emotions had reached their limit. A signal that something long hidden was finally demanding to be seen. And somewhere tonight, while everyone else sleeps, someone is staring into the darkness thinking about what comes next. Thinking about what they should say. Thinking about what they should do. Thinking about whether courage will finally be stronger than fear. Their eyes are still full of emotion. But now there is something else mixed with those tears. Determination. Because for the first time in a very long time, they are no longer focused on what went wrong. They are focused on what might still be possible. And that change could become the beginning of an entirely new chapter. A chapter they never stopped secretly hoping for. A chapter their heart never truly stopped believing in. A chapter that begins the moment silence finally ends.